Hello everyone, it's Miss Darling in the studio, and you're probably wondering what in the world's going on. Why do I have a bunch of tubes of paint sitting out here? And what are we up to today? Well, I'm going to make something that, I'm going to make again something I made quite a while ago and had a lot of fun doing it. And I don't recall whether I ever did a video on it. So let me show you what it is, and then we can proceed. First of all, I want my color scheme this time around to be this, which I had made a little while ago as a fabric masterboard. And I just love the colors that I used in this, and so I'm going to try to reflect that in the paints that I have set out here, which include some yellows, some kind of a light luminous green, a lot of purple values, purple and pink, and maybe some red, and of course some black and white. So I'm all ready because I got my paints ready, and I think that will fit in nicely with my color scheme. Okay, that to that. And so here's what I want to make, and this is like a little storage thing. Very fun, very colorful, and it's made using number 10 envelopes, you know, the kind you get in the mail all the time. And so there's going to be 6 envelopes that are hinged together, and we're going to paint over them and wind up with something similar to this. They open up in different places and in different ways, and you can see how colorful this is and how, you know, they work together and create something that's just really fun and colorful to have. And I've used this for a couple of years now and stuffed it full of various, you know, ephemera and whatever. And I took everything out of it so it would be empty when I show it to you. But you can see perhaps that it's very kind of wrinkled and battered up now because of all the use that it's had. And I wasn't all that careful, maybe could have done a better job painting on the inside of the envelope, so when you open it up it looks better. This is rather messy, so we'll do a better job maybe on the one we're going to make. And so if you want to follow along and make your own in a similar fashion, then by all means do so. Okay, these are the envelopes that I've pulled together. They can be colored if you want, or, you know, maybe better if they're all white. You can see I've covered over certain information, which I have to do for security reasons for the video, but you don't have to do that. Just make sure when you're painting over them that, you know, you use something that's opaque enough to cover over what's there, unless you want it to show through, which of course you might elect to do, particularly if it's text. And so anyway, so you're going to need 6 envelopes. They don't have to be a number 10. They could be, I think a number 9 is the size in the USA that goes inside of a number 10, like when you're making a payment on something. Okay, I had it upside down. Okay, so this is my top, and I'm going to flip it over, and you can see that when I open it up to the first spread, there's a flap on this side and a flap on this side. I'm going to pull out so we can see all of it. Okay, so there's a flap on both sides when you open the first one up. So then I'm going to flip this over, and on the reverse that we'll show together, I have 2 window envelopes. You might not have windows in yours, or they may be in different places than mine. That's okay, it doesn't matter. It just means when you decorate it and paint it, it's going to be slightly different from mine. So the second open spread, or I'll call it a double spread, the second double spread, there's no flaps, though you might have window envelopes. Now we flip it over again, and there's 2 flaps, one on each side. Okay. And when I turn that one over, again, I have 2 windows. You might have one, you might have none. And then we flip it over again, and now we have 2 flaps again. There's a flap on each side, okay? And we close that up, and then we turn it over to the last one, and there's no flap on the back. So no flap on the front and no flap on the back. All the flaps are inside, which I think is appropriate for, you know, if you're sticking things inside the envelope, it's probably better that your flap is inside to, you know, keep stuff inside where it belongs. Okay, so now we need to attach all of these envelopes to each other before we begin the process of decorating it. So I'm going to move my paints off to the side here. Well, kind of messy working in a small area. Okay, so now what are we going to do to adhere them to each other? And I'm trying to remember what I did last time. I think I used masking tape, or perhaps some of my artist tape. I have some here, but I think I would want to use some wider tape. And this is 3/4 inch wide tape. If you don't have some of this, perhaps some masking tape. I think it's good to use a tape that has somewhat the feel of paper on the outside of it, rather than well, it might be the same as colored tape, but I don't know. But I think this is a paper type of tape. Anyway, I'm going to first, I'm going to separate these out a little bit. I'm going to tape together the insides before I do the outside. And I think that will hold them together in a better way because the outer side is going to get quite thick once they're all together. So just tear off a piece that's about the length of your envelope. Make sure they're butted up to each other and that they meet properly at the top and bottom. And then try not to move them. Easier said than done as you lay your tape down. Okay, so that's my first double spread, and now I'm going to fold this one over, and I'm going to lay in there the next envelope in the series. And remember, this second spread had 2 windows in it, but no flaps. So I'm going to rip off another section and hold that in place. And take this one down. And if it's too long, like I have, just wrap it around, I think. No, we don't want to just wrap it around because that will interfere with movement. So just try and rip off whatever part is too long. Or cut it off. Okay, so this is the second double spread. Fold that over. And now bring in the next envelope. I'm all thumbs today, goodness. Okay, and repeat the process. So our third one has, each envelope has a flap, okay? Fold the right one over, and you see you're beginning to create some thickness there. Take your next envelope and lay it down. More tape. Oop, I got a little cattywonk there, so I'm going to adjust it, and by flipping it over you can line it up more properly again. It's probably a good idea to, in between each of these, take your bone folder and really press that tape down to hold it good in between each section. Okay, so now we're back to, this is the section. Again, I have 2 window envelopes. You might have 1, you might have 2, you might have none. And we fold over the right one and then add our last envelope. And you see in the last double spread, there's 2 flaps that will open up. Okay, so I'm going to tape these together, and then we will tape the outside as well, so we have good reinforcement. I really got that one short, so I think I'll lay that down and then add another short section. And secure it with the bone folder. And so now we have them all hinged together. Okay, and you can see the thickness that we have. So now I wish I had another tape that was wider than this to go on the outside, but I don't. So I'm just going to work with it anyway. I might decide to reinforce it though. So let's see. I should make this a little longer, I think. I think it's more crucial here on the outer that we make sure our tape covers as much of the height of this as possible. Now I'm going to just lay this in so that about 1/8 of an inch is adhered to the envelope, and then that gives me plenty of overlap to cover not only the thickness but to bring it on over to the front as well. Okay, so just be sure you try and push your adhesive down good so it holds it nice and firmly. Okay, so when you open it up, kind of flip it back and forth to make sure that everything is secure and none of the envelopes are going to fall out. Okay, so if you've done that, that's probably all you need to do. If you want to reinforce especially the outside, you might think about running another long piece on top. To make sure that the piece that goes over the back is securely, that's not going to move. I'm just going to snip off the overage here. So you can do that on the front, and you can do it on the back as well, which I think I might just do for the fun of it. This part right here is optional. Because if you're working with a wider tape, then having to reinforce it is less important than if it's pretty narrow. So I would think that a 1 inch wide is sufficient to not have to reinforce. And I don't even know if I really needed to. Depends on how much usage you think you might give this nifty little thing when you've got it all decorated and made up. They're so much fun. Okay, so now we have our little booklet. Matched together. And so now we're ready to paint. I'm using acrylic paints. You can use what you have, but they should not be transparent. They should be opaque. Now, at this point, you can make some choices. I think it might be fun before we start to paint, to glue down some ephemera that we might like all of it to show, or we might like just some of it to show. And by the way, I expect this video will require 2 or more parts to it to get all the way through it without extending the length of each video too much. So I think what I'm going to do is look for some ephemera that I can glue in here in random places, no particular order, and I'm going to be looking for neutral colors. So let's see what I've got laying around here. Here's a bunch of envelopes I decorated up a long time ago, and I've stuck ephemera in here. So let's first see if there's anything usable in here. Looks like I got quite a few neutral looking things in here that could be of use. So I'll need my handy glue stick, and let's see what we want to do. I don't think I want to put people's faces. Here's some invitation looking thing, an advertisement, waste not, want not. Here's a faux postcard. That could be nice. That's thin. Really doesn't matter. You know, just pull stuff out. And so, you know, this kind of nice to glue over, you know, places on the envelopes that are ugly and you definitely don't want them to show through underneath your paint. So that gives me quite a few there to start out with. And so I'm just going to jump in and start gluing stuff down. So here's a nice big one we can put on the front. That took care of more than one spot all by itself. And make sure you get your corners well glued down. You don't want these popping up on you after you're got it painted and all done. This one is a little tricky because it's actually on a card, not a thin piece of paper. It's actually almost cardstock in thickness. So here's one that's thinner. I think I'm going to stick with ephemera that has text on it rather than any kind of decoration, but do what you like. There's no rules to this. Okay, have some covering over I want to do here. I'm not going to, at this point, cover over my window envelopes. This one has no plastic in front of it, or I don't know what that would be, but this one does. So I'm going to leave those. I think maybe I'll put something over this. I might just cover over this one. I need to put my glue on the outside rather than on the piece I'm using to cover over, because I don't want, this has nothing covering the hole, and I don't want it to glue itself to the background or to the back part of the envelope. So I want to still be able to get into the full part of my envelope here, you see. So I put the glue on around the hole instead of on the ephemera that I'm gluing down. And I see this is wanting to work its way up there, so we'll push that down some more. Okay, and flip it over. I'm going to leave that text there, nothing over here, and we'll do some gluing back here. What else have we got here? That may all be all I'm going to find in this particular envelope, which is fine. I've got more. Lots of ephemera in this studio. Ephemera coming out of my ears. There's so much stuck away here and there and everywhere. So what have we got here? More color, I see. Maybe we'll do something like that and kill two birds with one stone. How about that? Try not to get glue on your envelope where you're not gluing something, because that could interfere with your paint later. All right. That takes care of that. And so I've covered over most of the spots that I've got something down here. I think I saw something narrow over here that might work. Yep. Got a piece of coffee dyed paper here. And let's just use that here. Nice. And maybe I'll throw in a few more here and there, just because I can. And I just like things. I like to see things, you know, with lots of maybe I'll go, well, I have my color scheme decided on, but I sure am liking some of these neutral pieces in here. And, you know, if you have glued down something that you really like and want it to show, it doesn't mean you have to cover it over with paint. You do what you want, you know. Be happy. And maybe I'll glue some ephemera down to these that don't have any reason for it, but do we need a reason, or do we want to just be a little more more consistent with what we're doing? I mean, we don't want any particular thing to be boring. So even though there was no reason to glue anything down here, we're gonna do it anyway. So we have more continuity. You can have a theme if you like. I guess my theme is kind of document, you know, kind of documents of various types. But, you know, you could have a floral theme if you wanted, or, you know, whatever. Just happens, you know, look, use what you have. That's the point. Just use up what you have, and that's it. Okay. I think that'll do it for this. And so a little cleanup here. This is where having lots of little just bits and pieces, you know, leftovers, things you wound up having on other projects that you just stored away in case you had a need for them later on something else. And so you can see how valuable they can become to rescue a future project. Okay, so I think that's probably maybe a good place to stop for this particular video, and we'll pick it up next time in part 2, and we're going to do some painting and just have a ball, and that will take care of probably part 2, and then part 3 we will finish off with the final ephemera that we use to decorate. And it's going to involve paper, and it's going to involve probably lace and pieces of fabric, and, you know, lots of different goodies as we go along. So please come back for part 2 in my next segment, and part 3 to finish this project up, and let's have a lot of fun. Just bring all your stuff and craft along with me, okay? So I'll see you in the next video. Thanks a lot, Miss Darling, calling this a wrap. Bye-bye.